My parents came here from Hong Kong,
Mm-hmm.
and I grew up in that area. And yeah, they were immigrants, and I grew up with that kind of. So I was born here, so I was raised sort of in like a dual culture type
Mm-hmm.
thing, where like at home it would be one culture, be like the Hong Kong culture, the Chinese culture. But then when I watch TV, it's very Americanized. I go to school, I speak English, go home, speak Chinese. Say I identify with Chinese culture. The immigration thing is a little different because I wasn't the one to immigrate here. I was born here, but I see the struggles that immigrants go through because my parents are immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
So those issues do affect me directly, I think. My parents, the only like two colleges they knew were Harvard and MIT.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since I was young, my parents, my grandparents, my whole family would always tell me like, education is really, really important. Go to a good school, go to a good college, like do well in school. Even though they said go to a good school, they only knew like two off the top of their heads.
Right.
So for them, they knew they knew that you had to get a good education to like move up, so to speak. But they didn't know exactly how to do that. They just told me to do that and then hoped that I figured it out. But I found outside support besides my parents. I found it through guidance counselors. I was in this other program called Summer Search, and they had like a mentor who like really helped me, and then like I got a lot of help through there. Academically, I did not feel prepared at Brown at all. I got really lucky because I did the pre-orientation program, the Third World Transition Program, TWT, was able to meet a lot of people who I could identify with, and people who shared the same experiences that I did growing up. But I know like outside of that bubble, it's like hard to find people, and like the experiences are very invisible. I feel like overall it's harder to connect with professors than connecting with like say a high school teacher. In high school I was easily able to connect with my teachers. I just felt the atmosphere is much different. You see them more often. I think it's just like easier to talk to them because lecturers, generally professors, just like talk at you. And there's not much of a discourse there, I guess. And yeah, she's taken a real investment in like my success, and that's actually really, really nice to like be able to like go up to a professor and be like, hey, like I'm doing this now, and she's like, wow, that's amazing. And I'm like, oh, but I want to do this, can you like write me a rec? And she's like, oh yeah, of course. And like, so it's really, really cool to have like at least like one person who's like sort of invested in like you as a person. Yeah, that's tough. I've seen like ESL classes offered here, and I think that's like geared towards internationals.
Right.
And so, but I don't think like immigrant students are necessarily barred from those. So I've seen that, but I don't know anyone who has experience with that. And I mean even the TWC or the Brown Center for Students of Color, I think is a really good support. Like I feel like people are much more PC, like much more politically correct, and really watch their like language or like offensive things. So yeah, it's hard. I mean, yeah, overtly racist things. It's hard to describe it like overall. Like I really want to split into parts because I think I've had very different stories, like academically and socially were very distinct parts. I would say socially it's been amazing. Socially it's been I've met some of the most amazing people, just like vastly different viewpoints. I've learned a lot from people, and just that's been an incredible experience. Academically, like I said, I struggled a lot first semester, but then like eventually I found my footing. I found a subject that I like. I study biology now, and I really like that. And then, but overall, academically, I'm just gonna come on and say I was kind of disappointed at Brown's education system. Like it would have been really helpful if, like, if when you get an advisor, if they asked you whether or not you wanted like a first gen advisor, or whether, or even just like a panel during orientation, be like, hey, like, did your parents not go to college, or like, did like, I don't know, or something like that. Like, well, then come to this workshop or something, like during orientation. And even if people who aren't first gen, like, oh, like, what's that about? Like, go there and like find out, like, oh, well, there's all these issues about people who like never been to college, because I think it's a very invisible issue, and